All right, let's get this rolling. So, hello and welcome to the National Road Safety Partnership Program webinar, Journey to a Tailored Journey Management Solution and Engaging the Workforce. My name is Jerome Carslake. Next slide, please. And I am the Director of the National Road Safety Partnership Program and its many activities. I had slightly more hair in that picture. To find out more, please visit the NRSP website, register for our newsletter, or follow us on social media so you can see all the different things that are coming up. Next slide. Today's session is going to go for around 60 minutes. We're going to take questions throughout. We have a couple of key points. We're at question slides if you need prompting. We are recording today's session and it will be shared on the NRSP website, and an email will go out following with a link to the PDF and the webinar for those who are watching it later on. So we do love to make this as interactive as possible. So chuck your questions in down there as we go along, and we'll ask them when they sort of pop up and they align with where we're going in the webinar. And we have a chat box as well. So throw a few comments, questions, thoughts in there as well if you wish. But we really want to make this as interactive as possible. So we have two amazing presenters today joining us. So if you can't tell the difference between the image and the person we've got there, so first of all, we have Josh Bryant, who is General Manager, People, Risk and Sustainability at Mitchell Services. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you very much, mate.
So in his role, he oversees safety training, organisational learning and employee engagement. A key element of his role has been innovation and adoption of technology, particularly for improving the safety of work, and as a result has been recognised as a finalist for numerous industry awards, and leads us today in the insightful webinar around our Mitchell Services case study. So it's awesome having you here today, Josh.
No worries.
Joining Josh, we have Jim. G'day, Jim.
G'day, mate. How are you?
Good. So Jim is the product manager at Ionics, and he's been 7 years with the product delivering solutions in the mining, oil and gas, renewables industries. And he's taken the JMS or Journey Management System from a concept idea to a sort of a leading resource and road safety solution. And diving on in, journey management, crucial thing for a lot of organisations. Some of them just don't quite understand it can be done quite easy, and how can we made into a safety management system. So over to you guys.
Awesome. So I'll just introduce us as a business. So Jim and I are going to tag team throughout this talk, but I guess I want to set the scene on the business that we're going to talk about today. So Mitchell Services is a drilling company. So we're actually Australia's most diverse drilling company in that we work in underground environments, surface environments, exploration environments. We're currently in 5 states. The business has grown from 160 people when I joined to just over 850 today, 25 different clients, 34 projects all around Australia. It's crazy. I think I had an afro when I started. Now I don't. But the biggest thing for us is to get to these places and to get to these wide-ranging work environments. Not all of them are in city centres. Most of them are in regional locations. Our workforce is a combination of drive in, drive out, and fly in, fly out, predominantly fly in, fly out. And where they fly into is a regional centre, and then they need to get out to their workplace or their place of work. So we've got 2 or 3 things that we really need to talk about when it comes to journey management. Is that, what about the commuters? What about our own people moving around the country, and heavy vehicle movements as well? So again, we don't work in cities. We work in remote locations. They're driving up to a couple of 100 kilometres sometimes to get to these remote jobs. The photo that you can see here is northwest Queensland, just south of Cloncurry. We use a lot of hire cars because of the point of hire is usually a Brisbane or a Sydney, etc. They'll fly into a regional centre. We don't have our own vehicles, so we need to move our people around using hire cars. And hire cars don't have tracking devices. They don't come with anything. They don't have like an IVMS. And we need to also think about, well, where does the bounds of Mitchell Services sort of responsibility lie? Is it only when they get to work? Is it when they get from home? Is it only that fly in, fly out? No, we've taken that on, that as soon as they leave their home address and are making their way to work, they're our responsibility. So how do we make sure that we know where our people are? And if anything were to happen, how are we able to respond? So if we were to have an event and any of our people were involved in a serious accident, how do we know that they're late for their where they were meant to arrive? What car were they in? Where were they traveling to? So winding it all the way back 2016, this is how we manage journey management. A typical piece of paper that would be filled out saying, I'm going from here to here. I think the time's going to take me about this long. And what I'll do is I'll text the supervisor when I get to this place. And then it would be usually running around trying to find a signature, thinking that you are paper safe because you've got a signature on it and you're handing over responsibility to someone else. But what if the supervisor's underground? What if the supervisor's not available? What if the worker's going to start their journey at 5:30 in the morning? So the paper-based system really limited us in terms of like being able to respond, understanding our controls, and actually understanding the risks associated with our journeys.
I'll kick off from here. So I just want to give you a bit of an overview of the origin story of how this product and solution came about. The light bulb moment for us as a business was back in the day. We used to be a telecommunication organization, selling phones and phone systems and communication systems for sort of mid to enterprise level companies. Some of our clients were working in the oil and gas industry, drilling industry. And at one point in time, we were trying to pitch another software solution. And the HSE manager walked into the room and said, you guys are a software organization. This is what we're doing for journey management. What can you come up with? So from there, I went away and I just called every oil and gas drilling company, resource sector company that would lend their ear to me. And from there, I found out it was actually quite a common problem within the resource sector and organizations such as Mitchell Services. And one of those phone calls was to Josh, who was gracious enough to let me come out to see him and pitch some very basic functionality and just ideas that were coming out of my head. And then Josh was just throwing ideas back at me. So from there, it was a little bit of work, just getting Josh and Mitchell Services on board. But once sort of Josh could see the vision, he was fully behind it. So from that point in time, I had to go to my business and sort of say, look, here's the common industry challenge. It's worthwhile investing to come up with a solution because there's pretty much very limited competitors in the market, and we'll come up with a point of difference. And we do have a very large point of difference, which is using that real-time GPS and geofencing to check people into locations automatically. Once we had our minimum viable product off the ground, from there it was a case of just getting customers on board, a handful at a time, slow going, getting a software application off the ground. And once we had a number of customers on board, pretty much all our improvements are from customer feedback. We'll ask our customers, how can we make this better? And they'll say, we would like it to do this or that. For example, one of the guys at Mitchell Services, once we had a minimal viable product within that organization, said to us, we go from A to B and B to A constantly. Wish we had a favorite routes option. So we developed favorite routes. And there's all sorts of examples of that throughout the application.
So the biggest thing that Ionics did, and that's what made them so different to us, is that they were really interested in the user experience. It wasn't just a back room with people like build the software and then just, oh, here you go and use it. We were quite genuine in the consultation with the workers who were going to use the platform. What did it need to look like? When did you need to do the journey part of the risk assessment? One early iteration of the product that we put forward is that we did the journey risk assessment and then we did the fatigue risk assessment at exactly the same time. And then the journey might be the next day. So it's no point doing the fatigue risk assessment at that time. So feedback from the workers would say, hey, isn't it better that we do the fatigue risk assessment just before we're about to drive so that we can honestly respond and go, if I've had a poor night's sleep, I'm actually a high risk. So that was feedback from the teams as well back into Ionics. Other things were really getting their feedback on the training that we were going to roll out. There was a little bit of initial hesitation going, oh, what about Big Brother? And if you're going to put this tracking device through my phone, you know, you're going to know when I'm home and when I go shopping and when I go fishing. And it's like, well, we need to make sure that the messaging that we get across to our people is explaining the app, that it works on stops and that the journey will complete itself, etc. And one last bit of feedback that I can recall from the teams is that if they were doing a really early journey in the morning and they were doing a fatigue risk assessment and they're waiting for supervisor's approval, what if that supervisor's busy underground asleep? So they put to us to go, well, if the journey is considered low risk when we've done our assessment, can we do auto approvals? And that's something that Ionics and their developers built in as well. And they really wanted to make sure that it was very clean and easy to use user interface, and really reflected the risks and type of journeys that our people would do. So a vehicle collection, we'd have company owned and maintained or non-company owned, but then we'd break that into bigger categories to go, well, is it company owned with a tracking device? Is it a company owned with four-wheel drive? So they actually asked us, and we worked with Ionics in expanding, you know, I guess the selections that we could have in here. Are they familiar with the route? Have they driven it, never on it before previously? They said, well, what if I've only driven it once or twice? What if I've only been on it as a passenger? So we added those sort of selection criteria as well. And we got lots of feedback from the team saying, hey, look, realistically, if I'm going for a drive with my family, if it's under 200 kilometers, is that something that's really high risk? Do we really need to do a journey management for that? So again, we were just building on, well, where's the cases where we're going to need to do journey management and when we won't? Jerome, I've left a little block for questions before we move on to like the development of the product and what it can do.
Sure. So some questions I've got for you, and welcome everyone else as well if you want to throw some in. So you mentioned Dido drive in, drive out earlier. So for the people's journeys, is that like going right from their front door when they start all the way out?
Yeah, so all the way out to a site. So they would fill out the paperwork. They'd even take a photo of the paperwork to their supervisor, send the supervisor a text saying, here it is all filled out. I'll text you at these towns. And they'd never forget, right? They'd never remember to text, and the supervisor would ignore the text coming through. Or if they're underground, you know, oh, I said I'd be at this town at 10 in the morning. They get in at 10:30 and then they send the text. Supervisor doesn't respond to that, going, well, they're half an hour late. What's that mean? So, yeah, it's definitely from front door to workplace. And again, they're like, you know, if we got them to fill out this paperwork, Jerome, and we go, oh, look, can you text us when you get to a town called Eidsvold? You know, they're driving still and they can pick their phone up and go, oh, yeah, I'm driving through Eidsvold, and then throw their phone back down. Supervisor's none the wiser. They just think, oh, yeah, cool, they've sent me a text. They must have stopped getting a drink, having a break. No, the person just texted and kept on driving. So that was another one of our risks.
So you amplify the inadvertent consequences when they're just doing that in the old basic way.
Yeah.
And you had an image there of one of your of the vehicle rolled over earlier as well.
That one there, mate.
Yeah. Do you want to talk us through that a bit?
Yeah. So that was actually a true event. Ben was the driver at the time. It was in regional New South Wales. He was commuting to the workplace, so he'd come from home. We'd done a paper-based risk assessment with Ben, and then Ben, probably 20 odd minutes out of town, came unstuck. There was a bit of a damaged culvert, and he veered a little bit too far to the left, and it actually resulted in a vehicle rollover. And it's only because, like this was very early on in the piece with the JMS, like we'd actually done the paper-based and we'd done the JMS. But the JMS is what actually alerted us to Ben being late for his journey, and his supervisor was then able to go, hey, Ben's late. I've actually received a response that he is late. He was able to then call head office, find the last place where Ben had got a signal or where he had stopped, and that enabled them to drive from a nearby town called Tamingli and actually provide Ben aid. So I'll then hand over to Jim. I think that's a good segue to go. Well, how did the app manage to do that? Is that right, Jim? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. So just a few of the features. So just talking about that particular scenario, the app uses, and here are just some of the features here. I'll probably, you can see them on your screen. The app uses GPS, geofences, and ETAs to find out if somebody's going to be, has reached a location, or if they're 15 or 30 minutes or X past ETA. That's when we send the overdue alert to the line manager and whoever else needs to be notified that a person hasn't arrived. That includes a hyperlink to Google Maps and any medical information from their profile, as well as contact details. That hyperlink will provide to the line manager and whoever else needs to be notified of their last known location, which greatly minimizes any search areas. So you can see there we've got real-time GPS. We do integrate with multiple GPS sources, multiple IVMS platforms, Garmin inReach. We've got Pivotal integration, so we can work over the Iridium satellite network solely. Our risk assessments and fatigue surveys are completely configurable. As Josh mentioned before, we can tailor it to suit all of our clients. Most of our clients will, 80% of what they use will be the same, and then 20% of all of our clients will have some sort of custom workflow specific to that business. So it's not out of the box, here you go. It's we configure and tailor the solution to every single client of ours. The approval process is a simple one click. The locations, now, if I just break this down simply, it's GPS, geolocation, and triggers if you do or do not arrive. And that's that escalation process. We do have some verbal driver coaching. So if your company has a fatigue management component, you can only drive a certain amount of time. If it's 2 hours or 3 hours, then the app will start talking to you when it's time to take a break. We've got some other options with messaging. We've got a messaging platform, and then you've got reporting and Power BI integration in the back end. So a full feature set, and a lot of this has just come from our client feedback.
Yeah, and I guess one of the key things there is that messaging broadcasting was particularly important to us when the New South Wales fires were on a number of years ago, and we had a lot of plant and equipment moving around, and we were able to use the JMS app to message our people and let them understand where the fires were. So we were point of contact for them to use that service.
So I'll just run through a simple workflow. So this would be how the end user uses the application. So they open the app, create a trip, select a vehicle, or they may have a vehicle pre-assigned to them. Any passengers you're taking with you, select your departure date, location, date and time, where you're going, and add in any check-in points along the way. Most of our clients will have a risk assessment, so complete that. And then after you've completed your risk assessment, select your approver, submit your journey plan, get it approved if it requires approval. You may need to select a source of GPS. By default, natively, the application will be using GPS from your mobile device. But as mentioned before, we've got various integrations to pull GPS through and aggregate that into a single platform. Complete any fatigue assessments and or pre-start checklists, and then press the start button and off you go. Just a few benefits of the platform. So you've got safety compliance in a lot of regions, especially the duty of care does extend to the doorstep. So you need to cover your people from home to site, and it covers that legislation completely. We've got analytics and reporting available throughout the platform, including that Power BI integration. Almost all data set that we have is available for you to manipulate through BI and provide your own dashboards specific on what you want to see. On
that, Jim, just to be very clear on that, because Jade just asked a question here. So in those dashboards, you could pick up like infractions and if a driver skips a mandatory schedule or break?
Yeah, 100%. That's available in the default dashboards and in our API endpoints. Yeah. So pretty much all the data we have is available to everyone. Yes, if they're compliant, we'll show that. If your field staff are non-compliant, you also have the ability to view and respond to that data. Onboarding, super simple. You can do a bulk upload, or we do integrate with some of our clients' Active Directory. So that's just automatic provisioning based on who's within the client directory. One of the key benefits, the key things for us is that hands-free operation. You don't need to pick up the phone and interact with the device when you're traveling. Based on the GPS and the geofence, we'll check you in automatically to those locations. That's a real key one for us, especially the cost of fines for interacting with your devices just going up and up and up and up throughout the country. Pre-populated routes, automatic safe arrivals, and fast deployment through a software as a service platform, and native mobile applications available at the Google Play and Apple App Store.
Now, this wasn't planned, but it was amazing. But I actually had to go to one of our sites in northwest Queensland Monday morning. First thing I did was get a hire car. So this is me at Mount Isa Airport, and that's my awesome hand model there. So that's me actually.
Calling.
Yeah, so that's actually me using the app. So my journey was to take me from Mount Isa, Cloncurry, McKinley, and then into Cannington Mine, South 32's mine. I did my journey risk assessment, submitted it to a person in head office, Rob. I then received a response via text saying that my journey had been approved. So you can see that Rob's approved that. It's about to start in 15 minutes, and I'm going from Mount Isa to Cannington. Please remember to start this journey in the app. What the app allows me to do is then go start my journey, and it lets me pick, do I want to use Google Maps? Do I want to use Apple Maps? Like it's my preference. But once it's done and I start my trip, it's hands-free. So it just, as soon as I drive through Cloncurry, it's got a circle around Cloncurry, and as soon as my mobile phone goes through that geofence, it alerts Rob that I've hit Cloncurry. If I was meant to be at Cloncurry by a certain time, it will notify Rob via text to his phone saying, Josh is 15 minutes late. So Rob can then act. He can call me. He can look on the dashboard, see where I am. So it enables him to act. And I don't have to touch my phone again. I don't. The good thing here is that this photo was actually taken in Cloncurry, and I'd paused to take a meeting. You can see my laptop in the lower left corner. I actually paused to take a meeting, so I paused the trip, and it will basically stop the trip, and then once I start driving again, resume the trip, and it recalculates how long it's going to take me to get to my final destination. This is a screenshot that Rob took just to check where I was on my journey. You can see that I'd left Mount Isa, went via Cloncurry, and I was just on the outskirts of McKinley when he took this. So you can see that at 10:33, I checked into the Cloncurry township. I paused the trip and then resumed the trip after I'd finished my meeting on my laptop. How's that for a sales pitch for JMS? Don't get any kickbacks or anything, but it actually, we did use it. So one thing I wanted to say here is that, and this actually surprised me, is that yesterday afternoon on my trip back to Mount Isa from the Cannington mine, I got a call about 15 kilometres outside of Mount Isa from Rob saying, oh, are you okay? And I went, yeah, why? And he goes, you're late, you're not in Mount Isa. I said, oh, I'm actually behind a road train that's got a bulldozer on it, and I'm in a train of cars behind it. So that's why I'm late. I'm only going 80 kilometres an hour. And he's like, I just wanted to check. And I was like, oh, amazing. So, you know, we actually do use this. And I'm a general manager. I travel every couple of weeks to these sites, and it's literally pick up my hire car, do my JMS, and off I go to site. So what this has allowed us to do is really understand our risk exposure. So all our commuters easily can put this in, and we can see who's traveling where, how long do they have to travel for. And it's really understanding that even if they fly in, fly out, and they live longer than 50 kilometres from that point, from that airport, we can then do a journey management plan outside of that 50 kilometre radius to make sure that they get home after that extended time on site. it's app-based. Like, you know, you give it to a 2-year-old, an iPad, and they can figure it out, right? Because it's app-based, it's so clean. The UIS is really easy to understand. The biggest thing I like is that it's set and forget. You can do the risk assessment, do the fatigue risk assessment, and then put your phone down, and you don't touch your phone again. I've seen other offerings from, I guess, other vendors, and it does still require you to touch your phone. We don't want that. And as Jim highlighted, like it's $1,000 in Queensland, I think, in 4 points. So you know, it's full on. The favorite journey and favorite routes was a big thing for us to get people on board and using the software, or basically the app, because they didn't have to go, oh, I've got 5 stops in this trip and I have to put it in each time. It just goes favorite routes, where are you starting your journey and at what time, and it calculates all the rest based on the stops that you would normally take. And the desktop portal is really, really simple, and we use it all the time. The biggest thing for us is that we don't use company vehicles. The majority of our drive in, drive out, and fly in, fly out are using hire cars. And the hire cars don't have our IVMS, so we don't need it. We can actually use a person's device, and they can plug it in to make sure it's charged. The JMS will actually let you know how much charge you've got, etc. So it's good just to have it plugged in. The big thing for me is doing that fatigue risk assessment before they start, not having to do it the night before and then a supervisor sign off on a form, yeah, he wasn't fatigued, yet they travel at 5 a.m. the next morning. So the app forces you can't start your trip unless you do your fatigue risk assessment and you meet the criteria, then you can start your trip. So again, that's based on the level of risk. So if I'd had a rubbish night's sleep and I did my risk assessment and I had an 8-hour trip ahead of me, it would require the CEO's authorization, and he'd basically get a message to his phone saying a high risk journey management has been submitted. Please review and approve. You can open that on your phone, and he can scroll through the risk assessment, understand why it's high risk, and then approve or not approve. We took over another drilling company in December 2019 called Drillcore. They were about the same size, and they were about to start a project at the Snowy River scheme in New South Wales. And the first thing that client asked is, oh, what do you do for journey management? And Deepcore, we're like most businesses, all paper-based. So they rang us and said, oh, what do you use? And we said, oh, we got this thing called the JMS app. Now, sometimes when you take over another company, it can be a bit, you know, bashy, and we don't like them, and Big Brother. But all we had to do was to change the logo on the phone to include the Deepcore logo as well. So we just put Mitchell's and Deepcore, and it was suddenly, oh, so it's our app as well. It's not just a Mitchell's, oh, they're making us do this. So it was really easy, adaptable, and they took it up within a fortnight. The entire company within Deepcore were like, this is a good thing. And particularly being able to say favorite routes around Victoria, where they were largely based, was a big game changer for them as well. Again, that example where Rob has been able to jump online and see where I am, but also to respond, to get a notification on his phone while he's picking up his daughter yesterday afternoon. It was just, Josh is 15 minutes late where he's meant to be in Mount Isa. Hey, mate, are you all right? Yeah, I'm all good. With the change to the national heavy vehicle legislation, this has enabled us to monitor our heavy vehicle movements as well. So it fulfills the requirements of COR. It's got speed tracking because it can track how fast the phone's going, and it can also set a limit of what the speed is and send a notification if someone actually exceeds the speed limit. So that's particularly important in our heavy vehicles. And as Jim says, it's customizable depending on the client. So when it comes to heavy vehicles, we've actually got a load restraint risk assessment included as part of the journey risk assessment and fatigue risk assessment. So we're doing our load management, our fatigue management, our speed management, and our journey management all in the one app. And like I said, we've had very little pushback. The first pushback we got when we were doing the initial consultation was, you know, like I said, oh, Big Brother, and you're going to track when I'm at the supermarket. And, you know, as provided that we're able to show them that, okay, we're not going to put a geofence around your house, but we'll make a geofence around your town. As soon as you leave that geofence area, it'll trigger that your journey started. And same thing, as soon as you enter the outer reaches of Mackay, if you lived in Mackay, it would then let us know that, yep, that journey's finished. With us, all these vehicles moving around Australia, all these people, 850 people in the business, probably 800 of them are doing the drive in, drive out. Massive exposure for Mitchell Services. And what the JMS has allowed us to do is put in a critical control, because it's not just an admin control, it's a critical control. It actually lowers the chance of that event happening. And we tied it into what we call our Fatal 8. And it's just been, I guess, the uptake by the workforce and understanding by the workforce of how important this control is to the business in managing our exposure to driving and that commuting risk is just been amazing. I'll let you finish off, Jim.
Okay, so this conclusion, I guess, is a bit of a JMS plug. Look, we've invested a lot of money to make JMS the most comprehensive journey management application on the market. There are a couple of others, but we've by far and away got a lot more features, benefits, and options with the application. It empowers fleet managers and operations around the globe, so we're not just restricted to Australia. We do have clients around the planet to keep their driving workforce just safe and secure. That's all it is. That's all it's about. And we're offering an automated platform. It monitors fatigue. It provides real-time visibility. We've got duress functionality for both staff and contractors traveling in either company or hire cars in the case of Mitchell Services, or even personal vehicles as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we as Mitchell Services, we don't receive any kickbacks, discounts for the JMS. The reason that I'll, always volunteer to discuss this product is it has been an absolute game changer in the management of that risk of commutes and managing journeys around our business. It's been low cost because it's an app. It doesn't require, it doesn't require hardware added to your vehicles. And I can't stress enough that with hire cars and more people using hire cars to move their people around, this just unlocks that ability to manage that risk of commutes.
Awesome. That's great, guys. So a couple of questions and open up, love to hear from others as well. So Alison's asking us, do you complement this technology with some education training with workers regarding road safety risks such as fatigue, speed, drink driving, risks on remote/rural roads, mobile phone rules?
I'll just say yes. I guess it's standard instruction. We've got a specific journey JMS app training package, and it does incorporate to let people know these are the risks that we need to manage, as well as using this app. We've had a number of vehicle incidents in the last month where we've had contact with wildlife, mainly kangaroos, when it's an early commute. So yeah, just answering your question, yeah, we are doing general education type around speeding events and interaction with wildlife as well, particularly driving on remote rural roads.
So on the interaction with wildlife, Josh, what happened there? Were the vehicles, did they hit like a kangaroo or an animal at speed? Did it actually render them useless, or were they able to limp along?
Look, we've okay, so in the last calendar year 2023, we've had 7 wildlife events where 3 of those have resulted in the vehicle being written off. But we've known where that vehicle is when it's stopped. It's actually got the function where you can actually, if it's a sudden stop, it'll actually trigger a response as well. We don't use that. We're more, if it's late, then it'll trigger a response. In this case, they were able to just ring their supervisor, but again, we received a notification of where that vehicle was, and we were able to let the supervisor know, yeah, they've rang in, we can see where the car is. They're about 18 kilometres from where you are.
Wow. So the turnaround was nice and tight and quick then.
Yep.
Jeez.
Yeah. Look, we've had a couple of cases as well where people have been late and where they haven't had signal on their iPhone for a limited amount of time. But we've been able to then use the JMS dashboard to see last known location where there was a ping to the to the GPS, and we can go, well, we know they were definitely there at this time. They've been missing for half an hour, therefore they could have only gone so far. And that's allowed a supervisor to then drive out and find a person who's had a flat tire and is just fixing that flat tire, and that's why it's taking so long.
Wow, that's great. So Shane's got a question here. Is the JMS used for all employee trips or just for the remote locations?
In our case, and Jim, I'll get you to talk to what your other clients use it for. Our rule is anything under 200 kilometres doesn't need to use the JMS, provided it's not in a rural area. But if it's in a rural area, we'll make a call based on a project risk assessment for that site, whether we believe we should be using JMS. And in those cases where there's probably excessive wildlife, unfenced road where there's livestock interaction, like cattle and sheep, etc., then we will put in place that site will use the JMS. So we can pick and choose which ones we want to use and not. But the majority of cases, if it's under 200 kilometres, we won't use the JMS unless it's a commute with a number of people in the vehicle.
And what happens then if you've got a number of people in the vehicle? Does that sort of tighten it up quite a bit? Or?
Yeah, so like if it's a single passenger and they're driving like 150 kilometres, most of the time they're in contact with someone. But I'll be honest, most people are so used to using the JMS that they'll use it from a trip from like, Townsville to Ayr, which is like 110 kilometres. So they'll land in Townsville, do a JMS, get that approved, and then drive to their home. They're just so used to using it.
So this is BAU for them.
Yeah.
And Jim, did you have some other thoughts around, is this consistent, that sort of approach with other sort of organisations, or does it vary much?
It varies quite a bit. So some clients will say if it's under an hour, you don't need to do a JMS. If it's under 100 kilometres, for example, we've got other clients, and I guess this will be an exception more than the norm, but we've got other clients that use it for everything, every trip they go on. So if it's a 5 kilometre trip down the road, they're still using the application. Obviously, that changes the dynamic around approvals. They'll just get everything automatically approved and may not be using risk assessments at all. But by and large, it's under a certain amount, an hour or 100 Ks, or in virtual services count 200 kilometres. Anything over that threshold, a lot of our clients will say, well, you need to use the application based on your company rules.
Are there any feedback loops as well? Like if someone's going along on one of those sort of journeys and they see some, say, infrastructure problems with regards to the road, potholes, issues like that, do any of those sort of things, can they report back to, so the asset owner finds out that they got problems?
Yeah, 100%. We did. We actually built that as a custom development piece for one of our larger clients. It's like a pin drop on the map, and then you can say this location, type in whatever the issue is, potholes or flooded road or whatever it is, and that can broadcast that message out to the people within either your business unit or your organisation as a whole, depending on your configuration.
So the other thing with the app is it's got a duress button, so it's got an emergency button, and because we're geniuses in safety and think we've cracked everything, so Rob and myself had a person completing a journey, and we said, oh look, be really interesting. We didn't ring Jim, of course, so we should have, but we said, oh look, we should test this emergency duress button and see if it works, and see if Rob gets notified. So Michael's hit the emergency duress button, and then suddenly all our phones have lit up in minutes. We've had administrators crying on the phone, mixing trouble. I just got a message to my phone. So we didn't realize that the duress actually went to everyone in the organization who was part of the JMS, because that's how we configured it. So yeah, the technology's been really good, and we've tested it to its boundaries, I think, Jim.
Yeah, you certainly have.
We've got another question here from Jade. Will you know when the app has not been used for a journey where it was required? So can they game it?
Yeah, that's a good one from my side. it can't be gamed, but if someone chooses not to do the risk assessment and do a journey, we have had that on occasion where people haven't actually submitted a journey. So yes, people can basically choose not to do it. In our business, it's a requirement.
So that's a whole different conversation. Someone works around it, and that's then their manager picking up. It then kicks off other issues, probably with regards to policy procedures.
Look, I've had to kick up the bum because I forgot to do one between two towns. I just totally forgot. So once I got to that other town, I received a phone call saying, "Oh, you're in a journey. We haven't received your journey management plan." I was like, "Oh, no, I just haven't done it." So yeah, it just allowed me to complete one on the spot and wait for approval.
Cool. Well, that's interesting. It does it automatically. So another question from Jade. Additionally, can the app data alerts from government road management agencies like closed roads, work sites, those sort of things, would they be able to come through, or does that have to be filtered through, say, Mitchell Services and out?
From our side, we haven't got that sort of capability and we manage that ourselves. But Jim, I don't know if you've seen any automation through the app.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot. It's definitely possible. Look, we're a custom software development company. We do all sorts of integrations all the time. We've talked about it a lot. We're just waiting for somebody to make it a requirement for their business, and then we can go down that path and do that integration.
Yeah, with the heavy vehicle, when we use it for a heavy vehicle journey management, one of the questions with the because you can customize it to go, for light vehicles, we want you to use this. For heavy vehicles, we want you to use this one. For the heavy vehicle, we've actually got the question like, have you checked, for any interruptions to road? Like, is there any roadworks on your journey? Because as part of the heavy vehicle movements, we need to know that. So we just included that they probably check that before they leave. But if there's any interruptions or some haphazard works, no, we won't get notified of that.
And just on that, I guess with some of those, I guess your journey management for your heavy vehicles, do you ever take into consideration like the time of day, so school areas, if school's coming out, and trying to divert or see if you can shift the journey so you avoid some of those high risk areas?
Look, I wouldn't say we purposely do that. Most of our journeys are in, there might be some townships that they do go through school zones, but I wouldn't say it's an ultimate consideration that we put through with the journey risk assessment or anything. It's not something we've added, but that's actually quite a good question, Jerome. It is. It's actually a really good question because the number of school zones that you can go through, particularly in regional towns where the main road is basically through the main street. Even going through Cloncurry yesterday, I went through a school zone. So that was just on my way to Mount Isa.
Nice. Well, and it's one of those opportunities you can do with technology, like those sort of things. So I think we answered that last time for Jade. I think so. I guess one of the key sort of messages from this, you really don't want to have a lost worker out and about anywhere as an employee, especially in remote regional Australia.
Yeah, and you don't want them having to touch their device. And probably the other thing is thinking about hardware costs that you need to add to your fleet and the use of hire cars. There's no excuse. There's just no excuse for you. This just makes journey management, risk assessment, fatigue risk assessment, and journey management easy as.
Nice. So one last sort of question, I'll just sort of dive in just a little bit. How's your workers? I know you spoke about at the very beginning how they've gone through. What's their sort of attitude now? Is there just no resistance to it? Do new people have any issues when they sign up to Mitchell Services, or is it just everyone sort of it's just part of the furniture now?
Yeah, look, in mining there is high turnover across the sites. There's people moving around sort of everywhere. So our business isn't immune to that. So we'd probably have anywhere between 15 to 18% turnover in a year of personnel. And the way the use of the app is so sort of ingrained at most of the project sites that it's almost part of your onboarding, I guess, that it is easily taken up. And we're just seeing, more and more, I guess, young people join the workforce that they're so used to you know, the Instagrams and everything else, and just using everything on an app, that it's easy. Oh, just want me to download this to my phone? No problem.
Okay, awesome. All right, guys. Well, I think unless anyone else has any questions to throw in, otherwise, what I'll ask each of you is just give us one take-home message you'd like to leave everyone with. So, Josh, what would your thoughts be?
My thing with these is probably looking at this JMS and going, well, this is an enterprise solution. So, Josh, your company's 850 people, so this is a pretty simple case for you to take this on board. But the good thing with the app is that you can pay per user. So you can actually apply this to any industry, and it's easy for those people to use. So even if you've got a business with 10 people and, you know, say it's a carpentry business and you've got people everywhere, just because it's app-based, it's really easy to implement. And as we've shown, when we bought Deepcore, we almost doubled in size, and we were able to bring that business on board with this app over a period of 2 weeks. So the technology's there, and I just think all businesses should use it.
Thanks, Josh. Jim, anything you want to share at all, mate? Just one last one.
Yeah, I guess the takeaway from me is, look, originally we built this application to solve a problem, but as it's evolved, it's purely about getting people to and from where they need to be, safely and securely, and look, just letting someone know if they don't arrive. So it's really turned into a safety-focused business or business unit within our organisation.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jim and Josh. We're coming up. For everyone else, just let me know we've got some upcoming webinars. Next month, we'll be talking with Amber Communities, and they're going to be joining in, talking around, I guess, the impact of road trauma on workers and support systems for that. Then in October, we're going to be drawing in and really exploring, I guess, how you drive, how you live, and how that sort of reflects into the key elements of getting people in the right sort of headspace when they get in the vehicle. And then we've got some good ones with Origin coming up around telematics and SPX protection, and how they've really delved in using a technology called DSS or CI, and how they've creatively used that for only 5 units across a fleet of something like 300 or 400, and really influence their organisation, their workers through that. So thank you very much, Josh and Jim. Been a pleasure having a chat and hearing all around how you guys came through this sort of journey in journey management. And thank you, everyone on the line.
No problem.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day, everyone.